Hey booktube, welcome back to my channel. My name is Donna and this is my bookshed. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in January. Okay guys, so for the month of January, I really had like an awesome reading month. I read so many books. I completed a total of 16 books and I DNF'd 2 books. Now this is a big deal for me because I normally don't read that many books in a month. So I'm really happy that I was able to have a slower January and get a lot more reading completed. So just to help me remember all of these books, I am going to be looking at my phone so I can go through these books in order of when I read them. Alright, so the first book I completed for the year was the Buzz Books Romance 2024. Now, yes, I know you're looking at me like, girl, it's 2025, why are you reading this? But you know, I had it from my NetGalley shop and I completely forgot about it. So I went in there and I read it. And basically, this is like a book where you get a few chapters of upcoming romance books. And you get to basically do a taste test of these books. So I'm really happy I finally read it because there was a couple books in there that I did like, one of which I already read and I loved it. So I'm happy. I think it's a great idea and I would love to read more, get more of this type of material in the future. The next book I read was Jade City by Fonda Lee, and this one I own a physical copy of it. It is the first book in the Green Book. It is the first book in the Greenbone saga, and I enjoyed this one. I wasn't as gung-ho as everyone normally is, but I enjoyed it well enough. It was really interesting. There were some scenes in it that grabbed my attention, that made me really want to continue and get to learn more about this family. In this book, we meet like the core family, and they are a Greenbone family, which means that they live in a place where jade is very powerful, very valuable, and they are one of the families that control the distribution and wear and use of jade in this world. And they are basically at war with this other clan, the Mountain Peak. No, they're the No Peak, and they're at war with the Mountain clan. So in this book, we really get to see them go to war. There's a lot of political movement going around in this book, and we get introduced to a lot of characters that we see later on in the series. And I enjoyed this one, and I think if you're looking for a nice fantasy series, then this is a solid book and a solid series that you could indulge in. The next book I read was An Academy for Liars. And that one, I really enjoyed that book. I think I did a reading vlog on that one. I'll post the link up here. But I like that book. It's basically, it read more YA-like, but it's more new adult because the characters in that book, they're all adults. So basically we meet this young lady and she ends up in this magical college. She doesn't know that she has magic until she gets there, and she is really learning the art of persuasion and how to basically manipulate people. And we get to follow her journey in the school, and the longer she stays in the school, the more she finds out things aren't exactly what it seems. And I really like it. If there's more to come, I would read more from this author again. I really like this one. Next up, I read Death of the Author, which was one of my most anticipated reads of this year. I was able to get it off, and then I also purchased the copy. I purchased this deluxe edition, and I love the way that you get two different covers for this book, because this book is basically a 2-in-1 story. So in this novel, we meet the author and she ends up writing a book, and in this book we get the author story and we get the book that she's writing. So it's a 2-in-1. It's more like a literary science fiction, and I love this book. It was one of my favorite books for the month. I think that if you love literary fiction and you kind of want to dip your toes into science fiction but with an Afro twist, the Afro basis, then this one is a really good book. This author is one of my favorite ones. I love a lot of the work that she has. I have it on my shelf and I always like her work. So I really love this book. The next book I read in January was Only for the Holidays by Abiola Bello. And this one is a Christmas book. Um, I don't remember exactly what it said, but basically, this young girl, she lives with her mom and her sister, and they decide to go on a Christmas vacation to this cottage kind of thing on a farm type of area. And she is in a relationship that is not really suiting her, but she doesn't realize that the relationship is not really working out. So she is holding on for dear life to this relationship. They go to this farm, and then while she's there, she meets the son of the owner who works there as well, and their romance builds. And I really like their story because you get to see them learning about each other and really opening up to new things, especially the female, the FMC, especially her, because she was not open to going to this farm when the mother brought it up. So she begrudgingly attended this family vacation, but it was nice to see her open up to being around the animals and this different, slower way of life. And then we get to see them both fall in love, and it was a really sweet story. I liked it. I liked it. That one I rated 4 stars. So I rated Only for the Holidays 4 stars. Death of the Author was a 5-star read for me. Academy for Liars, I rated 4 stars. Jade City, I rated 4 stars. And Buzz Books 2024 Romance, I also rated 4 stars. The next book I read was The Dagger and the Flame by Catherine Doyle, and I rated this one 3.5 stars. Yes, this one was 3.5 stars. I liked it. It is the first book in a series, and I felt like it was a solid start. So in this book, we meet this girl who is, I don't want to spoil it, but she is orphaned. And this book, there are two societies in this city. One is the Daggers and one some other cloaks. Now, one society believes in stealing, the other one believes in right. So they get hired out to do different things by different people, and they basically avoid each other, so they all have their own turf in the city and they stay out of each other's way. Unbeknownst to her, her mother is involved in some things that she doesn't know, and this is why she ends up being orphaned. So for this book, we get to see her story of her evolve in the society, become part of this society, and then come into her own identity. She also meets this young man whose job it is to get rid of her, but he doesn't want to do it. He at first he's just supposed to like keep tabs on her, but eventually when he gets the order to take her out, he doesn't want to do it because they have developed, feelings for each other, and we get to see their story. But the book is good. I felt there was a good amount of tension and a good amount of reveals as we went through the story to keep me interested, and I would definitely go on to read the next book. Then I read Unhinged by Octavia Grant, and let me tell you, this book was psychotic. Right, I had a good time. I rated that one 4 stars as well. In this book, we meet a best-selling author who has gone off the deep end because the man she was dating and turned out to be married with a family, and he didn't want to leave his family for her. So then she went off the deep end, did some very horrible things, and now while she's incarcerated, she is still doing what she does best, which is write stories. And these stories are all very gruesome and they are tragic. These are not happy stories at all. They are all very intense, they're all very gruesome, and she makes no apologies. And then we get a little twist at the end of this book, and I really liked it. So it is basically an anthology of all these stories that the author has written while she is incarcerated. So for all the thriller girlies up there, if you want something that's unhinged, that's gonna have you like questioning what's really happening here, then I would recommend this one. The next book I read was Marry Me Twice by Monica Waters, and I own this one on my Kindle because I also want to read not just books on my shelf, but I want to read books I own on my Kindle as well. I was able to get the audio to accompany this one from my BB app, which I was very happy about. In this book, we meet Chinara and Haji. Is it Haji? Haiji. We meet Shinara and Haiji. And in this book, Shonara is on hard time. She is down on her luck. And Haiji sees her and he's very interested, but she's going through something, so she's not really thinking about no man or him in this type of way. And then he gives her a proposal, so we end up with a marriage of convenience to help him out with a family situation he has going on, and also to give her a place to live while she gets back on her feet. And then they're also attracted to each other in the middle of all this, so we get to see their romance blossom. And this book is spicy in a good way. The spice in this book, mwah, loved it. And he played no games. Like, he was a man that he knew exactly what he wanted, and he made no bones about going after it. He was very honest, very clear with her. He made it be known. He let it be known that, hey, I want you. If you don't want me, I'm a backup. But if you want me like I want you, then we gonna make something happen. And happen it did. And I love this book. There is a part two of this story which involves Shannara's sister and Haiji's friend, and I plan on reading that sometime in the near future. The next book I read was a book of my physical shelf. I read Jade War by Fonda Lee, and I rated this book 5 stars. I absolutely loved this book. I felt like this book took everything that we got in Jade City and it continued building off of it and gave us so much more depth to the story. And I love that. Like, the political movements in this story from these characters are out of this world. There are some heart-stopping scenes in here that will have you clutching your purse and on the edge of your seat. There definitely things went down in this book. So, as I said before, there are these two rival clans, and they are really trying to see how they can take out each other and fully control the jade distribution, the jade mining, the local businesses, the politics, the everything. They're trying to, each clan is battling to control everything in this world. They're also expanding and trying to trade with other countries around. There are pending wars by neighboring nations, and it is a whole lot happening in this book. There are characters that we meet in book one and we continue seeing them here, but we get a lot more development of those characters, which I really loved. Some of the characters I felt were a bit naive in book one, but we really see them like come to terms with reality and really figure out where they stand in this world and how to maneuver it a little bit better so that they can keep their heads attached to their bodies, right? And I love this book. It is a part two in the series, and I definitely intend on following up and continuing with Jade Legacy. So after that, I went and I read an Illicit Seduction by Shensia C. Higgins. And this is more of a erotica, and it was like a thriller erotica actually. Yeah, I also own this book on Kindle. So, another one of my Kindle I knocked down. So in this book we meet Seraph, and she is a career girl. She works at this firm, and then she helps her uncle's stepson get a job at this agency. And they're cool, they go out, they hang out a lot. And he's handsome, but he's not checking for any of these ladies at the firm that's checking for him. And she's just minding her business. Anyway, they go to a party one night, and then she ends up in a position where she had a lot to drink, and she ends up in a compromising position. And then after, things took a turn that she was not expecting. Now, as I said, this is a erotica, so it's hot and steamy throughout this book, but the hot and steaminess comes with a price. There's some extra stuff here that she wasn't bargaining for that ends up happening, and then she is fighting for her life to try to get out of that situation. So if you like a quick read, you like dark romance, you like eroticas, then I would recommend this one. I rated this book 4 stars. Next up, I read His Only Wife by Peace Adozo Medi, and I absolutely enjoyed this book. This was another 4 star read for me. This book is set in Ghana, and in this book, Afi and her mom, they live in a village and they're really dependent on the goodwill of this other lady who owns a lot of businesses. Her kids are successful, she's successful, and because Afi and her mother has been orphaned because of the death of her father, and her uncle, her family, they didn't really step up to the plate, not all the way. They're dependent on the goodwill of this lady. And Mrs. Ganu has a son named Ellie, and Ellie is in a relationship with someone that his mother doesn't like. So his mother comes up with this big scheme to marry him off to Afi so that he could have a nice, good Ghanaian wife that will follow the rules and traditions that his mother wants for him. So in this book, we get to follow Afi in her marriage while she has to basically fight for her marriage because this man that she's been married to, he has a relationship and a child with this other woman, but she has now been the actual person that he's married to. So in this journey, we get to see Afi come of age and really grow out of her nativity and figure out what it means to be a wife, what it means to be a woman, and how she's going to navigate this situation with her husband having more than one person in his life and how she can really get to be his only wife. If you love family drama, if you love reading books set in Ghana or any other African nation and all the cultural nuances that come with that, then you would love this book and I absolutely recommend. The next book I read was Summertime Shootout by Brianne Denny. And this is basically, it's like a offshoot of another story, but you could call it like the third book. But if you've read Trapping Through the Snow, then this is technically the third book because this book centers the sister from that book. So in this book, we follow Koya, Priest, who is the sister of the brothers that we meet in Trapping Through the Snow. And we also follow Parish, who works for one of the brothers that we met in Trapping Through the Snow. And your Parish don't have no type of sense. Koya is grimy, which we already knew from that first duology, the way she got at her brothers. We already know she's grimy. So she continues being grimy in this book. Not as bad as she was in that other one, but grimy in other ways. And then Parish is out here just living his best life. And this is their story of them falling in love with each other. If you like books with um other woman, I don't want to say other woman because yeah, if you don't mind a little cheaty in this book, in your novels, if you don't mind a little relationship drama, if you don't like men who are basically menaces to society, then yeah, give this give this book a try. I rated this one 3.75. I enjoyed the story, but there's a particular trope in here that I am not particularly a fan of. So I mean, things evened out in the end, but I'm just not a fan of that trope. So that's why it was not for me. Next up, in keeping with my goal of reading more nonfiction books, I read White Tears, Brown Scars by Ruby Hamad. Um, how white feminism betrays women of color. And when I started this book, I thought it was just going to be a regurgitation of materials that I've read and understood before, but this book is so much more. There is so much research in this book, and I learned so many new things that I wasn't aware of before that I'm very happy for. Um, you can see some of my tabs here. I At one point I just stopped tabbing and just was just underlining and making notes, and I got to go back in to put to put the tabs for the things that I highlighted. But this book, it really explores the spectrum of black and brown people, both in America and overseas. Like, we get a lot of information on black people in America, we get information on aboriginals in Australia, we get information on Native Americans here in the States again. And there's so many things, so many facts that I was not aware of, like historical facts dealing with these societies, that I am so happy that the author put in here. And she also cites a lot of her work, which I really appreciated. So for things that you're interested in, you can go back and look at those original pieces of information. Um, she also does a lot of linking, and I like it. She really goes back in time in the beginning of colonialism and how some of these stereotypes were used and developed to harm black women, women of color, and how those that foundation was set, and how those ideologies still persist today, and how it has evolved into the stereotypes that we see, the stereotypes and the tropes that we see in real life now, and how harmful they are. So I really love this one. This one I rated 4.75 for me, and I liked it. There was just like one little thing I wasn't the biggest fan of, but by the end of the book, I love the conclusion the author got to. But I understand why she couldn't put it in the beginning, because we had to see the evolution of how those things played out. So I love this book. I would probably like go back and read little snippets of it in the future. Next up, I was like, since I'm already on my nonfiction roll, let me just go straight to and continue so I can get them out of the way, because nonfiction is not like my favorite type of book to read. So I was like, you know what, let me get it going. So then I read Freedom is a Constant Struggle, Ferguson, Palestine, and the Foundations of a Movement by Angela White Davis. And I rated this book 3.5. Yeah, I gave this one 3.5 stars. And that's because, no, I lied. I rated this 3 stars. 3 stars. And I had heard a lot about this book, and I will say I was expecting more. This book didn't deliver in the way or as much as I was expecting. So the premise of this book is basically showing these struggles and really like making the links on how they are interconnected with each other, and why black and brown people need to come together to fight systems of oppression. And it can only work, it can only succeed in unity. Like, a fight there is a fight here, it's all the same fight. And while I appreciated that connection, I felt like I wanted a bit more balance in this book. Like, the title of this book says Ferguson, Palestine, and the Foundation of a Movement, but I felt like this book really focused on Palestine, and I didn't get what I wanted to get in regards to Ferguson. I wanted a lot more on Ferguson, and I felt like that was missing. I also felt like this book, while it gave some information, like, I didn't realize how widespread that G4S security firm, like how many things they were involved in, and I really love that. I really love that she shared that much information, but I also felt like this book was very idealistic, and I just can't get with the it was too, like, for example, one of the solutions she's talking about is the abolishment of prisons. Now, I think that prison system needs to be reformed? Yes, I agree. But a big point in this book that she kept making was just the abolishment of prisons altogether. And the example she would use, the thing she would use to support that argument, like, she would make a case for, like, people that are wrongfully imprisoned, and people that are in prison because of petty crimes, like really, really petty thefts, like, shoplifting and really, really petty things. And while I agree those petty crimes should be treated accordingly and not be given, harsh prison sentences for petty things, in this book there was no solution for actual heavy crimes. Like none of the arguments that she made centers around what about people that are serial unalivers? What about what are you going to do with people that are PDF files? Like there was no case for nothing for those actual serious things there. And like you can't argue that we need to abolish prison, but you don't give us a solution for people that are actually harming, like seriously harming society. So I just couldn't get it. It yeah. It was okay, but I wished it was better. The next book I read was Daughter of Chaos by A.S. Webb, and I rated this one 3 stars. 3 stars. So this one is based on Greek mythology, and it is book one of the Dark Pantheon series. And this book is based on Greek mythology. We meet the main character, Danae. She lives in a village with her parents and her sister. And then some unfortunate events happen that caused Danae to believe that she had been cursed. And now she has left her village and she is on a mission to make contacts with one of the servants of the oracles of the gods so that they can rid her of this curse. However, when she on this journey, she realizes or comes to terms with what she believes is a curse may not necessarily be a curse, but she's still trying to kind of figure it out. I feel like this book was very action packed, but at the same time, I'm not sure if anything really, like, things happened. It's action packed, but I felt like some of those things didn't stick. It felt like you were running a race. It felt like you're running a hurdles. Yeah, like you're running the hurdles. So now you run, 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 run. You get over that hurdle, and then you run, 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 and you do another hurdle. That's how I feel like the characters were in this book. They were just going from scene to scene running. Something happens here, they run and they get away. Something happens there, they run and they go. The next obstacle, hop over and they go. So it felt like a lot like that. And I felt something about the way the book was written kept me kind of disconnected from the story. Now, it could just be me. Maybe I was just disconnected on my own, but I didn't connect with the story the way I thought I would have. So this was a 3 star read for me. 3 star read for me. The next book I read, um, which was the last book I read for the month, was James by Percival Everett. And this book has been up and down my timeline. I've seen everybody reading it. And I was nervous. I was nervous going into this book. I wanted to read it because I wanted to see what the hype was about, but I was afraid to read it because I'm like, I'm gonna be disappointed. This book is not gonna give what these people say it's gonna give, and I'm gonna be sad. But I was not. I was not disappointed. I was actually very happy with this book. I borrowed it on Libby and I listened to it, and I will be getting a physical copy so I can reread it and highlight and annotate it. In this book, we meet Jim, and he is on a journey with Huckleberry Finn, but James is the enslaved person. So we get this journey from his point of view and the adventures that they go on. This book, I don't even know how to describe it. This book was like, it was like a lesson on the inception of code switching. Um, it showed, it really highlighted how the enslaved people, even from that position that they were in, that social and class position, and racial discrimination and all of that, how even from that position they still had to navigate these fragile feelings of the dominant people around them, how they had to move through this world to not be seen, to minimize themselves. And Jim is brilliant. He is brilliant. There is things in this book that will make you laugh, things that will make you cringe, things that will make you mad, things that will just give you a better understanding of the society at that point in time. And I understand why this book has gotten so much recognition it has gotten. It is truly a masterpiece. and I loved every minute of this book from beginning straight down to the end. 5 stars. Automatic, it was a full on 5 stars. It's definitely going to be one of my favorite books, favorite reads of the year. The other two books that I attempted to read this month but did not finish: One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, and this was a romantic book. It started off strong for me for the first 50 or so pages, I believe. Um, in the first 50 pages, we meet the main character, and she has been sent away to live in a village with her aunt and uncle because she's gotten sick. And in this world, when you get sick and your magic appears, it's bye bye for you. So they sent her away to protect her. Fortunately, her magic has not manifested in an outward way, so she is able to live a normal-ish life. And in this book, we get to see her communicate with this being that's in her head. And it started off great, but then I just couldn't get with the story. I stopped caring after about those 50 pages, and I just decided, hey, just give it up and move on. So I DNF'd that book. There was a lot of talk about oil slick thoughts, and the thing in her head was talking to her in riddles, and I just looked at how long this book was, and I was like, if I have to read this book and hear this thing talk to her in riddles all the way to the end, it's not gonna work for me. So I just gave it up and moved right along. I know some people love that book. I've seen it up and down on social media, but hey, it just wasn't one for me. The next book I DNF'd this month was Exiled by Iron by Igbo Okusun, and it is the second book in a series. It is part of the Tainted Blood duology. The first book was Forged by Blood. I read that one last year, and I think I rated it like 3 stars, 2.5, 3 stars. And I enjoyed, in the first book, I enjoyed most of the first book, but I think the last quarter of the first book, I didn't really enjoy it all. And then in the second book, Exiled by Iron, it kind of picks off right after the events that happened in book one. And I thought that I could get over it and move on, but then we started off the book, and the two main characters who we are following in the beginning of the book, they had pissed me off in the end of book one, so I just couldn't deal with it. And after a while, I was like, there's no point in forcing myself to read the story, so just DNF it and move on. But if you read book one, um and you like, stories about based on some type of African mythology, it's fantasy, it's adventure, then book two is out and you can give it a try. It just wasn't for me. If you didn't have the same bad feelings I had at the end of book one, then I'm gonna say, hey, continue and see how you like where the story ends in book two. Yeah, you guys, so there you have it. That was the 16 books I read in January plus my two DNFs. So I had a really big reading month, especially for the first month of the year. I was on a roll. I don't know if the rest of my month's going to be like that. I highly doubt it. But hey, I'm happy I knocked out a few books off my physical shelf. I knocked off a couple books off of my Kindle. So I think it, and I knocked out a couple nonfiction books. So I think I started off January with a bang. I started off my 2025 reading goals with a bang. So I'm happy to see it. Love that for me. Anyway, you guys, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.